Hi folks, you're with Taskless today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this live stream. Please listen to this presentation as you would a radio broadcast. In this essay, I'd like to talk about mass migration and what can be done to control it. Now, there's been a whole burst, and with the US presidential election coming up, there's been a whole burst of propaganda all over the place saying that mass migration is here to stay. It's a fact of life. There's nothing you can do about it. And if you've got a problem with it or even want to question it or cast any doubts on it, then you're a racist, fascist, Nazi, Hitler thrice. So that's the end of it. Nothing more to talk about. I don't have to listen to you. You're Hitler, and we're the morally superior ones, and we say it's all good. And da, da, da. Now, there are various justifications that are coming around. US Senator Chuck Schumer from New York, he was recently doing a media interview where he said, look, we've got to have mass migration. There's nobody to do the work. Nobody. There are no workers. None, not a single worker. So we have to have mass migration because there's no one to do the work. And da, da, da. Now, this is a grotesque and horrible lie, by the way. But it's one that gets pushed around quite a lot, not only in the United States, but in Britain and any country that's the recipient of mass migration, which is really most, if not all, Western countries today. Then that line gets trotted out. We just need the workers. We're not having enough children. We've just got to have the work. There's no one to do the work. I mean, and this is pushed heavily by Indian and Pakistani media as well. The West has got who's so short on workers, and whatever workers they do have are lazy and stupid. So we, these third world peasants from an absolutely failed basket case state, we have to go over there and help these first world people get their shit together. I mean, that's a convincing argument. Yeah, yeah, right. So the reality is that no one can actually tell us why mass migration is needed. And every justification they bring up is, again, an outrageous lie. Not even a kernel of truth in it. It's an outrageous fucking lie. So why do we have mass migration? That's the globalists clearly want and are demanding it. And every Western government is globalist controlled now. So they're all madly pushing this idea of mass migration being an unalloyed good. No one can tell us why. No one can tell us why it's needed. No one can explain why it's good. And any evidence, clear evidence that can be brought up says it's a terrible bad. But nonetheless, it keeps on coming and against the wishes of the local populace. In fact, not only against the wishes, but in direct defiance of the local populace. So let's have a look at some of these issues. Now, why has mass migration recently become an issue? Well, it's only become an issue because the globalists have ginned it up. They wanted it. The entire architecture of mass migration is globalist controlled. It's pushed and funded by the globalists. How do you think these illiterate peasants in the middle of nowhere en masse decide to go to first world countries? How do they travel those distances? Where do they get all the clothes, the food, the water, the transport, the ships that take them from the North African coast into Europe, or the buses and the transport to take them from out in the middle of nowhere in Pakistan through into Europe? Where does all that come from? That's a lot of very, very expensive infrastructure. So, do you think they just put on their sandals and just walk all the way from Pakistan and walk the 10,000 kilometers to Western Europe? I think I'll just get up today and do that. Of course they don't. They're organized. It's all organized and orchestrated, and they're facilitated and helped and aided and abetted and encouraged all the way. And if they want to give up halfway, thinking, gee whiz, I don't think it was this long. Remember, they're illiterate peasants. They've got no concept of time and distance and space. So then there are armies of agitators and stirrers that are there in these various way stations and refugee camps telling them that, no, it's all right. It's just around the next corner. It's okay. And look think of all the free stuff you'll get. So there's a massive network of propaganda and misinformation. In fact, if you want to look at misinformation and disinformation, look at the information that these globalist agitators give to these illiterate peasants, telling them how there used to be a time when your country was richer than rich, and the white people took it all from you, so you're only going to take back what's yours, and all this sort of stuff. Why isn't that disinformation penalised under law? Why aren't those people being put in prison for the lies they tell and their treachery and deceit? But they're not. It's only white people apparently tell lies, and working class white people that don't like mass migration. They're the only liars in the world today. Everyone else is a truth teller, it seems. So why are the nation states totally, or the Western nation states, totally unable to deal with mass migration? Well, again, they're not trying to stop it. They're doing everything they can to facilitate it and make it easier, whether it's in the US with open borders or in Britain with the all those people crossing the channel, but also the legal migration. The bar has been lowered and lowered and lowered so that an illiterate third world peasant can now get apply and get citizenship, whereas and again, with armies of stirrers and agitators and troublemakers helping them fill out the documents and taking kickbacks from labour hire firms and all sorts of stuff. So there's all this going on, and that should be clamped down on, but it's not. So again, it's part of the facilitation process. So there's really no effort or attempt to stop or limit or restrict mass migration. As soon as there's a mention of going to a migration system where, say, a skills-based migration, for example, as soon as there's even mention of that, then the international glob's control media goes into hysterical meltdown, accusing anybody involved of being Hitler, for goodness sakes, just for suggesting a skilled migration program. Let's suppose, though, a skilled migration program did exist, there would be no problem in stopping people from coming. You simply close the border. Anyone that employs an illegal alien gets a heavy fine. Illegal aliens are instantly deported. All that sort of stuff. And if you have illegal aliens in the country, and you just heavily tax any remittances they make, and so on. So there's a million ways you could discourage illegals to stay in the country, and as soon as illegals or any third world migrant realizes you ain't going to get no free stuff like zip, nada, zilch, they won't come. Why would they come? They're only coming for the free stuff. So you deny them the free stuff, they won't come there. Now, some are the simple low IQ illiterate peasants from Haiti or somewhere like that, an IQ of 78. They maybe don't understand. So when the globalist agitators say, "Oh, you ought to go there. Look, the streets are paved with gold," which is the message that they're given, and they go to New York thinking, "Well, the streets are paved with gold," and it's not quite how things are explained to them. But they come for the free stuff. Now, also, it's very important to understand a lot of these third world cultures, the village cultures in particular, whether it's Africa or the Indian subcontinent, the people in the village, they share what they have. So things are very communally owned, not in every place in the third world, but things are often communally owned. And so whatever's in the village is considered as being owned by everybody. Now, it could be the spear you made yourself to go out and chase the antelope you're going to eat for dinner tonight. That might be yours, but the common resources of the village, including the food, they share it, and it's very much a sort of a socialist environment, if you will. And this is why these people tend not to invest in the future, because things are commonly owned. Why would you bust your ass creating an asset that will benefit everyone else? So this is why socialist type peasant societies don't progress beyond the Stone Age, wherever they are. This communal ownership is a huge break in investing in the future. The second thing is, as one woman typically has many intimate partners. In Africa, that's quite common, as it still is in the United States today. They're still living that African sort of lifestyle. As one woman may have multiple sexual partners, then the matrilineal line is how you identify inheritance and things of that nature, and thus again there's no investment in the future. So these people they now all have there's a television in the local village, or there's a mobile phone, so they can look how people in the West live. And so, well, gee, I want some of that. But when they come to the West, they assume that the social, communal, socialist type structure that they had in Africa will be repeated when they come to the West. So they'll look around, they see all the buildings and the cars and the the physical things, and wow, you guys have so much. It's only reasonable you should share it with me, which in effect is what is happening, because as these third world peasants arrive in the West, the total wealth of the West is subdivided, because these people get free hotels, free medical care, free this, free that, things that they couldn't even dream of or conceive in their places of origin. And so, but that is wealth taken away from the domestic white population. So the white people are becoming poorer because there's a wealth transfer going on from white citizens in the West to these incoming people, because these people don't produce anything. So the white folks are being forced to pay for these migrants, and they're being paid by their wealth being taken away from them. And it's done in two ways, through tax or higher taxes. White people can't get jobs because of affirmative action to black people, and so on and so on. And so the living standards and the quality of life too of white people is diminished, but it's a transfer of wealth. Now, you could say that the public-private partnerships and things of that nature are a transfer of wealth from the citizenry to the corporate elites and the Black Rocks and the State Streets and so on. For example, the government came out years ago now and said, look, if you want to have good quality roads, we have to get the private sector to build it and maintain it. We can't do it through the tax system. Why not? Because that money they were saving was going to be diverted into social engineering and re-engineering and bringing in mass migrants and so on. So it's okay, well, the private sector, the so-called public-private partnership, can build now this road, but in order for the private company to make some money, they have to charge a toll for the road. And so therefore, a road that you used to be able to use for free, as in, it's funded through the tax system, and the people owned it, is now owned by a private company that makes absolutely bonanza level profits. And now you have to pay, $5 every time you want to use the road. And if you're using it every day going each way, that's $50 a week you're using to use a road that you previously could use for nothing. Or again, it was funded through tax. So there's been huge transfers of wealth away from Western white citizenry, which is a big part of reduction in purchasing power. For example, the price of property going hysterical and through the roof. That's creating a much higher cost for the average citizen, but creating huge benefits for the big property owners and so on and so forth. But coming back to the mass migration, any government that wants to stop mass migration could do it tomorrow if they wanted to, just evict all the illegals or make it impossible for them to stay or uneconomical for them to stay. Again, remove all benefits for people who arrive, clamp down on the asylum. I was looking at the asylum claims that over 85% of the people that arrive in Europe do not come from a war zone or do not come from anywhere where they're in danger. And anyway, even if they were, there's a refugee migrant camp nearby that they could stay, where they get fed and everything for free, where globalist agitators run around stirring these people up, trying to gin them up to go to the West. But there's no reason for these people to be coming to Europe, and all they want is, I want all the stuff that those white people have. I want that. And that's not a reason to be a migrant or so on. Now, sure, if you want to say, well, I want a better life and I've got the skills and I've got the education and so on and so forth, I can speak English or whatever the language is of the country you want to go to, that's different. But that's a skilled migration program. And that should, I think, stay in place. There's nothing wrong with that. But in terms of parasites and freeloaders, which is what really, over 90% of the mass migration movement is, then that's unsustainable in anybody's language. And again, it's the white Western citizen that's been made to pay for it. And as in the case in England at the moment, if you've got a problem with that and you complain, they might even put you in prison for it, for goodness sakes. You've been with Tacitus today, your Pushback channel. Thank you for listening.